love the comic scene here. This town has always been unique among other towns in that Portland, how would I say this? I guess Portland is a loud town. It's loud in the sense of whatever it does, it's going to do it, it's going to do it well, and it's going to make a very loud statement. So we've always had more bookstores and comic stores per capita than anywhere else in the United States. You look at the people of this city, and the people are very demonstrative about how they feel.
Children chase me, people go bzzz at me, it's too much.
You'll see people here with more tattoos, more piercings, very outspoken about their political feelings, their sexual identity, and whatever else. We are a very loud town in that you're going to know how people feel, and it'll be pretty obvious that we're just not like a lot of other cities.
I love Portland. I think it's a great town for many reasons. It's really great for the vegetarian community. I'm vegan, so that really helps a lot. It's really got a great creative scene. I love the weather, I love the rain. It's just really a beautiful place to live.
The whole do-it-yourself culture just thrives here. You know, zines, recording studios, small comics companies, bigger comics companies, and I'm finally getting used to the weather after being here 10 years. So I love Portland. I love it a lot.
And I talked to some guys who've moved here, and it's like, oh well, the reason they like it here is because there's enough culture to keep them, occupied, but not so much culture to keep them preoccupied.
I just want to be here for a while. I love, the smallness of it, but also the fact that there's all this cultural activity for such a town of this size.
I used to originally think before I moved here that it was unique because it rained all the time, so therefore people came here because you'd be more likely to stay in and get work done than go outside. The weather's nice, you want to go outside. When it was raining, oh, I'm going to stay inside, oh, I might as well work. It kind of harbors that certain creativity a little bit more is what I initially thought. Now I have no clue. Now I think that's just a good place for creativeness to germinate. That's the only thing I can think of. It's a forward-thinking town, and it has good public transportation, which I, for some reason, equate that into why people like it here, particularly comic artists. Because a lot of comic artists tend to be broke. So having good public transportation helps.
You can move to Portland, and if you're penciling one book, the money that you make if you're working at Marvel or DC is going to, pay you enough that you can make a comfortable living and maybe even buy a house.
I think that Portland itself gives me a lot of inspiration and has given me the amount of time that I need to work on my own projects by being a cheap place to live, where you don't have to work very hard, or you can work jobs where you have spare time or where you're doing something you like, so then you're not drained of energy at the end of the day, or you can work part-time and have all this other time to draw.
I've lived in other places where the lifestyle has left me feeling kind of stressed out, and just by virtue of how relaxed I am living in Portland, how much I enjoy being here, I feel like, my work is better for it.
We have more writers and artists here than anywhere else other than New York City.
It's uncanny is what it is, because anywhere I look, on any given day, I'll see somebody reading a comic. And I've never seen that any place else that I've ever been, where you can be on the bus, or in the library, or any number of places, coffee shops, restaurants, and see someone reading a graphic novel or a comic. That doesn't happen most places.
There's a much more receptive community to it here than anywhere else. Why that is, I couldn't tell you, but it's just cool. People are cooler here in Portland.
You have to have a modicum of intelligence to want to move to Portland,
When you talk about the best creators in the industry, both mainstream and indie right now, I think a huge chunk of them live in this town. I mean, in terms of writers, you've got Brian Bendis, who I think in terms of mainstream writing is as good as they get. Same with Greg Rucka. In terms of artists, you've got Matt Clark, Andrew Johnson, Paul Guinan, Pete Woods, Rebecca Woods. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on.
I mean, so many people that do the same kind of thing in the same place. And that there are, I mean, there's such a large scale. Like, there's places that will help you self-publish your things. And then there's some kind of small presses that will help publish your things. And then there's like Top Shelf Comics is here, but also Dark Horse Comics is here. So you could move here if you wanted to be around other comic artists or be around a supportive community for comic artists. And if you wanted to, your stuff will get out there.
I think it's helpful that we have those publishers here. I think that maybe a certain kind of creative type is drawn to this sort of climate.
It's weird that they all kind of migrated. We've all kind of migrated to Portland, but I mean, a lot of the big shows are, you know, down in California, and it's a 2-hour plane ride. With FedEx and stuff like that, it's not a very expensive city to live in.
Portland is lucky because, again, there's the publishers, but there's also, you know, a couple really good retailers too. And you go to a store like Excalibur over in Southeast Portland, and if you go there on a Wednesday, New Comics Day, it's like you're going to run into half the people that we're talking about because they all go there.
There's other cities I like, but I could stay here the rest of my life and be very happy.
I love it. I mean, I'm here. I love it. I don't want to move anywhere else.
In Portland, I think it's easier to have comic events and alternative kind of comic conventions and ways of getting comics to people and displaying comics to people. So I see things at Portland getting more creative. I see more comics flooding Portland, more comic artists maybe moving here and putting out their own things. Places like Portland are probably going to be where the diversity and the creativity and the boom of self-published comics will start.
I mean, this is definitely sort of a gathering space for people to live and work and create, but also, more importantly, for publishers to exist. I mean, Dark Horse is one of the last publishers, the independent publishers, that emerged during the 80s to still be around. Most of the others are gone.
Dark Horse Comics started out here, and I think that helped. That started drawing people here.
You could work at Dark Horse, you know, and put out, I don't know what they put out, Batman or something.
Dark Horse has some licenses that it puts out, things like Star Wars, Usagi Yojimbo, things that are, I guess, a bit more recognizable. But by and large, they put out some really good stuff.
I'm an editor at Dark Horse Comics. Right now I'm editing Blade of the Immortal, which is a Japanese monthly, and I'm editing Super Manga Blast, which is an anthology featuring Japanese comics, or manga as they're more popularly known. It was started by Mike Richardson, who's always been a fan of comics. He started a chain of comic book stores and kind of became disillusioned with what was currently on the market. So he started his own company. I guess its main mission as a comic book company is to provide a home for creator-owned works where artists can feel, you know, safe knowing that they will always own the characters they created. They will always own the physical work that they've created. And its mission probably is also to be a company that provides a diverse line of books, from the manga that we license from Japan to the licensed products from TV and movie arena. Dark Horse has been publishing manga for about a decade. It's a dream job. I love it. An editor deals with like so many things behind the scenes, dealing with phone calls from creators whose checks aren't there, and trying to deal with accounting, to dealing with the more creative issues too. That's probably the hardest part, is, you know, being the middleman, being kind of a weird middleman and working for both the artist and for the company, and trying to make the best possible situation for both. I think our relationships with our Japanese sister companies will continue to get stronger. You'll see a lot more Japanese works translated for the American market. You'll probably see a lot more Dark Horse products becoming live action or animated films, because that's something that we do intend to continue to pursue.
Top shelf in the bartending world is where you put all the good booze. It's where all the, you know, the really killer booze is. I realized that I wanted to be in the comics field after years of being a comic book junkie, a Marvel zombie, and when I self-published my own first mini-comic. I drew this when I was tending bar. Publishing that first little mini-comic gave me the bug, and it made me realize that my forte was much more in the publication and design field than in actually cartooning. And all hopes that I had of becoming an inker on the X-Men were quickly forgotten. Top Shelf is kind of a bittersweet story. My mom had passed away from cancer earlier that year, and I had some trust fund money that I had, about $20,000. And then I started publishing with the Top Shelf anthology, at which point my friend Chris Taros, who's now my publishing partner, approached me and he asked if I wanted a business partner. And I thought about it for literally 5 seconds, and I said, yes, score, you know, this is great. And the rest is history.
He published stuff he liked, but over the years he's persevered, and he's finally has several blockbusters under his belt.
I think Craig Thompson's Blankets, which came out a few years ago through Top Shelf, is like the best example of what the art form is capable of.
It's a coming-of-age story. It's about growing up in the Midwest. It's about like growing up in a religious fundamentalist family. High school romance, like coming-of-age romance, and all these sort of like, you know, development of oneself.
It's a pretty remarkable book, and there were scenes in that as I was getting these chapters where literally I wept. I mean, it's a stunning book. It stands with the greatest of contemporary American fiction.
You're never going to see, you know, Marvel put out a book like Blankets, and even if they did, it would be Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson in that story.
Blankets is certainly is huge for his company as far as, like, you know, sales and income.
But Blankets, I think mostly for its scope as well as its brutal kind of honesty to the actual storytelling would probably have to be my favorite.
I mean, obviously Blankets is something I'm hugely proud of. From Hell, hugely proud of. Just to be able to work with Alan Moore and publishing all these obscure projects that he's done.
So he's quite a success story, quite a Portland success story, actually.
If a genie came out with a bottle one day and said, hey, Brett, you can do anything you want to do in the world as a career, I'd say, hey, fuck off, man, I'm already doing it, you know?
They were the kids that walked in the fire, and one day they'll be saying, they were the ones running far away.
One of the things that I appreciate about indie comics more than the mainstream is that they really are pushing the medium into telling types of stories that, you know, after a while you get tired of seeing Spider-Man battle Dr. Octopus, or, you know, the Joker escape from Arkham Asylum for like the 8 billionth time.
I think they're more reflective of the author, and they can be a little bit more emotional or talk about things that actually happened.
What I like about indie comics is that it's a venue for anyone to do what they want. They can go to a publisher that doesn't, a small publisher that doesn't pay anything, and if they have something that's good enough, they can get it published.
You don't need to go to school. You don't need to go to an art school. You don't need to have a class. You don't need to find somebody to back you or to believe in your project or to tell you their opinion of your project. And then I can just go to Kinko's and copy it and staple it and put it in stores and send it to my friends. And there, I've just self-published something.
You're fronting all the costs for production. It means that you're the only one in charge of marketing it, advertising it, getting it sent to stores, getting it available to purchase online. I just play around with an idea. I write an initial draft, revise it, run it past a few pretty close friends, see what they think. I have to say I'm most proud immediately of the book I've been working on, Painkillers. Sort of just taking the idea of the internet and mass media in general a step further to a point where, you know, there's just one channel that they're plugged into all the time. But there's a small percentage of people who can't get on because this process is physically debilitating and you require a large number of painkillers, which is where the title of the story comes from. It's sort of a mythological story. It's kind of framed with some classic mythological references.
I am a comic illustrator. I'm an illustrator and I specialize in comic book storytelling, is what I like to put it. A lot of guys can get into the business, in the mainstream comic business, by starting off drawing superhero comics and getting in that way and doing well for themselves, whereas I started off getting into small press, small publisher kind of comics, doing indie comics. Private Beach, it's in a nutshell, the best way I could come up with it is that the old Mary Tyler Moore show as if it were directed by David Lynch and put into a comic book. It's about this 20-something girl named Trudy Honeyvan, and she has what she thinks is a normal life, but just strange things happen to her on a daily basis. A lot of the reactions that the Trudy character has to people are situations that I've personally had, or I'd react in the same way. So yeah, most of the Trudy character is me. That's my most personal and work that I'm most proud of, because I did all the writing and all the art. I created the characters. It's all me.
I want your soul. I need your soul.
I draw pictures of myself.
I went to see your band, and I thought,
And of my friends.
wow, that's swell.
And of my dog. And of animals wearing clothes. Invincible Summer is about my life in Portland. It's an edited chronicle of my early 20s and my dog's single-digit years. I'm kind of just drawing my universe. My zine, or the things that you see out in the world, are just things that I culled from that. Most of my artistic process just comes from ideas that I have at the time that I journal about, and later on I'll be like, oh, I liked that image. I liked that thing. That day seemed interesting. And I'll take it and redraw it, or copy the pictures from my journal and paste them in there, or redraw them so they look a little bit better, a little bit less sketchy.
If we don't have rules, then how can we break them?
And if we don't have mistakes, then how did we make them?
Comic zines are more often reflective of the author, which means that they're more often about true stories. Portland has also given me spaces like the Independent Publishing Resource Center or the Zine Symposium, where I actually see other people's work that inspires me, or actually have access to different mediums and tools that I wouldn't normally have. The IPRC is the Independent Publishing Resource Center, and it is located above Reading Frenzy, the zine store in downtown Portland. It started because people will go into Reading Frenzy all the time and be like, hey, these zines are cool, how do I make a zine? And you can use the tools that they have there to make your own work.
There's a pretty large community for people who put out their own zines, their own writing, their own multimedia type stuff like that.
And there's workshops on how to use the things, and workshops on how to do things, or how to distribute your work. And without the IPRC, I don't feel like my zine would be quite the same at all. Comic book stores are a good place to get comics. I think that comic book stores are good because I think that mainstream comics are a good, gateway drug.
Here in town, you got Excalibur. He's got a great selection of comics. He really knows from good comics.
You walk in and it's clean and organized, and there's people that are going to help you find what you want.
They study it. They're fans, and they are students of comics, and so they know what's good, and they stock everything. The good stuff.
I've always loved paper. The name of the store is actually Excalibur Books and Comics, and I've always had a love of comics. That's what I cut my teeth in learning to read. Probably the easiest part and the part that gives me just the most pleasure is just seeing good reads put together with people who love the medium. We're very supportive to the local publishers, whether that be Top Shelf Productions, Dark Horse. I'm happy to see this town creating good products. I've been doing this long enough now that it's really neat that I've seen little kids who are coming into the store now are all grown up and are beginning to have kids of their own.
The city will continue to be home to a lot of people, but if they leave, it doesn't mean that that it's not going to be any less of a good city to live in. It just means that on Wednesday afternoons, you're not going to run into David Hahn and Brian Bendis at the comic book store, which would be a shame.
I still am astonished that there aren't other towns that have as many local comic publishers as we have here. I'm also very proud that there is an independent comic scene of people that will get out and do something.
Most of the people who are involved in comics are really, it's just a great bunch of people. I love it.
I think there'll always be a creative city, and there'll always be like plenty of things to do for storytellers here.
But I do think that there's amazing supportive networks. I mean, I got somebody to publish my book here without even trying. Somebody, you know, noticed, said, I see what you're doing and I notice it. And that couldn't necessarily happen anywhere else.
Standing down there at the skate park. Summertime again, well it arrives inside. The feeling of love and hate. And everyone wonders what it's all about when they're sitting down. When they're sitting. And the summers ain't the same. Well, the summers ain't the same. The summers ain't the same. Well, the summers ain't the same. Understand. Slamming greasy pies on 22nd and Hawthorne, wondering why I ever came back. Getting all wasted with your friends wasn't fun enough for you. For you. Summers ain't the same. The summers ain't the same. Well, the summers ain't the same. Well, it's just a fucking shame. What a waste of life. What it meant to be all alone on the road. So you stepped along and check yourself of your friends and your family and your loved ones. Side to side wells and watch graffiti go by. Rode the trains down low to the road. Well, the summers ain't the same. Well, the summers ain't the same. Summers ain't the same. Well, the summers ain't.
This probably shouldn't go in the documentary, but it's pretty interesting anyway. But this is not going to make it to the documentary place. But okay, this is off the record right here. This maybe should not go on the documentary.